Robin, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has
First,
been a journey.
I know it has been, and I want to thank you for being faithful to that. But I want to do two things. First, I want you just to very quickly explain to our viewers tonight what the SAFE Act actually does.
Well, this is a very tightly crafted bill. It simply prohibits sex change operations and chemical sex change in minors. It does nothing after they're 18, they're on their own. This simply says, let's pump the brakes. It doesn't stop counseling. It doesn't stop any health care. It simply says, we're not going to experiment on our children. We're not going to give them drugs that would keep them from going through puberty. It's a pretty straightforward bill.
Now, Robin, doesn't that run parallel to what we do with other actions that children might take that are irreversible? I mean, even children,
Sure.
Young people getting tattoos have to get parental permission. So we take all kinds of actions that restrict and limit what those under the age of 18 can do.
Correct. You can't even take your child home from the hospital when you give birth without a car seat. Can't get a tattoo. Can't even change your name. Can't get cigarettes or buy a drink. So why would we have them change their identity until they're old enough to understand the consequences? That's all we're saying. And I think that's important. We need to protect children and allow them to make choices after they're 18.
So what was the motivating factor for you getting involved in, as you mentioned, this has been a journey. It has been a tough one. There's a lot of vocal opposition. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot, it's just very vocal and even militant. Why did you take this on?
Well, this has been a long time in coming. There's been a real concern. I have a real concern for children, and I don't want to see any child pressured, and I don't want to see any child experimented on. So this has been something of a process of what to do, when to do it. And this bill is so tightly crafted. Counseling is still in the bill. Healthcare is still in the bill. There's nothing that removes healthcare at all. It simply says nothing done to a child to change or alter them until after they're 18, and then that's their decision. But we started this back August, way back early fall, just slowly plodding along and trying to think through what's best for children. It's not something that overnight just woke up and said, hey, let's do this. Now, this was done with a lot of thought and a lot of concern. And this population is under attack. These kids need love. They need to be seen. They need to be cared for, not experimented on.
That's extremely important. You know, back in my days when I was in the legislature and authored some first in the nation pieces of legislation, including the covenant marriage law, which Arkansas actually passed after we did in Louisiana. I heard all of the arguments against the covenant marriage. You know, they're just throwing everything they could to stop it. So I know you've experienced the same thing when it comes to the SAFE Act. What are some of the things that have been put up there as reasons not to move forward with this bill?
Well, it's all been political mostly. And one of the things that has been brought up is the suicide issue. These kids have the highest suicide rate in the country. It's 19% suicide rate when they start this process. That should terrify us all as parents, as Americans. And one of the sweetest letters that I have received, it was an email from a transgendered woman who was older, who said, I read the bill. I agree with the bill. I wouldn't recommend anybody do this for an under 18 child. And she's on the opposite side of the aisle and saw the wisdom of protecting children. So I think people on both sides of the aisle can see that wisdom. I think the shrill left is loud, but underneath, both sides of the aisle can agree protecting children should be the first goal.
And the social science on this shows that many of these children who are confused about their sexuality during this time, they eventually come to terms with who they've been created to be, and most of them go on to live very happy and productive lives.
Yes, they do. About 95% of them go on to live normal lives and have no problems. We have some wonderful doctors that testified for the bill and talked about gender confusion and gender distress. And they did an excellent job laying out the issues. And it's important when kids do have problems that they seek counseling. We didn't take that out of the bill. So I think that's something that parents can look to. There are some great counselors available to help kids walk through the problems and see that they are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I'm so thankful that we have wonderful doctors out there. We don't need to experiment on kids. We just need to love them.
So Representative Lundstrum, let me just ask you this one final question. The status of the bill, it's passed the legislature. It's with the governor. What are we expecting?
I don't know. I do think the governor cares about kids as well. It passed the House with 70 votes. It passed overwhelmingly in the Senate. Now it sits on the governor's desk. Our governor and first lady care very much about children in the state of Arkansas. So now it's time for Arkansans to pray and support our governor and encourage him to support the bill and encourage him. I think he's under a lot of pressure right now from the loud and left. He needs to hear from the middle of the road folks and Christians. We need to support our governor and encourage him to support the bill.
Yeah, and that's spoken from experience. The pressure that he is under, and so we certainly want to encourage him in that. And folks, you can actually go to signthesafeact.com to contact Governor Hutchinson, send a note of encouragement to him to take the right steps and move forward in protecting these children. Representative Robin Lundstrum, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for your leadership on this issue that is so important.
Well, it's been a team effort, and I appreciate all the help from everybody. We've had a lot of help from y'all and from Family Council, the Republican women and Democrats and Republicans alike, and I just appreciate the help from everybody. It's been a team effort.
Well, I hope next time we talk is when the bill is signed into law.
I hope so too.
All right. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
And folks, let me encourage you again, go to signthesafeact.com so that you can send a message to Governor Hutchinson encouraging him to sign this protective measure into law.